Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Punching Through, where we are chatting with women leaders who have blazed the trail and are inspiration to one and all. I'm Vanita Pandey, CMO of Caf, and I'm here with one of my good friends and an absolute rock star when it comes to the world of compliance, KYC, AML, fraud, risk, anything that you talk about. Ambreen Khasru, welcome.
Thanks, Vanita. Thanks for having me here.
And Ambreen, you and I have talked through, multiple companies. You've had a storied career. You've been, instrumental in launching products across the globe. So, walk me a little bit about your career and what makes you tick.
Okay, so I didn't start my career in fintech, by the way. I've been in fintech for 12 years, but prior to that, I wanted to be paid to travel. So, I worked for a couple of hotel chains, and then I worked for value-added service for the mobile phone industry. And then I got dragged into financial services by an ex-colleague of mine who thought it would be fabulous to work for MoneyGram. That's how it all started. So, and in Paris, because I am half French for my sins. Yeah. So that's how I started my fintech career. I started in Paris working for MoneyGram in remittances and really learning the hard way about all the subject matters that you just mentioned: compliance, fraud, risk, everything. Because obviously when you're talking about people's hard-earned money that they're sending home, some of the time that's not always that story. But yeah, right. That's how it all started.
That's like such a stark difference, right? This is the hub of a lot of fraud, but also there are needy people getting there. And Ambreen, our first call, I remember very vividly. It was in the midst of the pandemic. I was juggling like a toddler, and who was probably not having a great time, and she probably was using foul language, and I think you had a sense of humor about it, right? So as women, pandemic showed the different things we have to do, and you obviously are a mother yourself. So walk me through, what are some of the challenges that being a woman that one has faced, and how have you used that as a strength in your journey?
Yeah, so I mean, I work in fintech, so we all know that fintech is a predominantly male environment, and I am oftentimes the only female in a senior management committee or even on the C-suite, which has happened to me several times actually in several different fintechs. So again, it's always quite tough to be in a room that's very male dominated and be the only female. That is a challenge, but it's a challenge that I enjoy actually, because I learn a lot about myself, to be honest with you, more than I do about the other colleagues.
That is so amazing. That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. I learn about, I think I faced several situations where I've had to take the emotion out of it completely and be more rational. And and I know that sounds really strange, but you look at the opportunity, you look at the problem, and you look at the solution, and you just get right to the point. And I've learned how to get right to the point in the 12 or 13 years that I've been working in fintech, because if I don't, my voice will not be heard. Let's put it
there. That's a really good way to look at it. Take the emotion out, but also be aware of how you are, what it means to you. And I'm so grateful for the first time in my career. I'm working in an executive team where there are 3 other very strong women. So I'm an 8-member exec team with 4 women. And I say when it comes to personality, 80% of the personality is the women. Like we so it's really amazing. Ambreen, going down, this is we are having a very serious, some of the important aspects. I want to kind of go back to the first time we met in person.
Yeah.
And there was when you and I kind of started chatting, you were expecting certain biases that that you had probably you were used to seeing from people who come from my background, right? Indians who were there. And then we instantly bonded over our love for Assam and love for good food and all of the other things. Walk me through, how are these biases still existing, and what can women do to just power through them and call it out?
So I actually it's really interesting because we did bond on that side. And I'm realizing, by the way, I'm half Indian, half French. So I now use that to my advantage. Yeah. Because in actual fact, as a younger version of myself, I never really spoke about my background. I mean, obviously being called Ambreen, a lot of people ask me questions, but basically, yes, when we met, I felt liberated because obviously you are, you're a peer to me. So you come from a very similar place to where I come from. So I now use it to my advantage, as I said earlier, because I work in global roles all around the world, and that has taught me to adapt to cultures locally. Because one thing that I would say to any woman that's seeking a career in fintech is to embrace the global side of things, because you're going to learn so much about, I think, money and tummy are the most important things to people on this planet. So, as you said, food and money are the most important things. So if you can learn about how people deal with that, then, and all around the world, and it's a very different, thing all around the world. And I think you can acquiesce to that because you also have a global role. I think that is what makes me tick, because you asked me that earlier. What makes me tick is meeting all those different cultures, seeing how they work, how do they approach things, and then adapting locally, but with a global lens.
That's true. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No. So from that perspective, I have an advantage because I do have that double culture.
And the term that I recently heard, it's called a third culture kids.
Okay.
The term is that first culture is the culture of your parents, which is different. The second culture is when you grow up in a culture which is different from the culture of your parents. And then third is, I think, you identify and bond with all of the other. And you don't have to be a kid, you could be an adult, but if you've come from that background, there is an instant bonding that we saw. And I think truly I've seen you work through, and you command, your presence is like so big in a room. And then sometimes when I talk to you and you bring out these other things, and it's really amazing for me to hear that someone who's as strong and as in control as you are also goes through some of the thought processes that I do, right? But then someone told me that only smart people have, imposter syndrome. Idiots don't have it. So I think maybe it goes with the territory. And one last question, Ambreen, for someone what has been some of the pivotal moments in your career? You talked about, you coming into your own and embracing your, ethnic diversity and being comfortable with the fact that, you will work in different cultures, and also the MoneyGram story. But what are some of the things that have shaped your leadership style?
Yeah.
And what advice would you give to someone else who wants to have a career as a leader?
Yeah. I mean, I won't name the companies, but let's say during the pandemic was probably the most painful moment in my career, because I was dealing with all sorts of different issues. And luckily, one of the companies that you work for came to my rescue, or at least came to our company's rescue. So I would say that a lot of what I've learned has been through that pain. I needed to get those scars. And by default, of course, I work in compliance and risk. So I'm going to get scarred, and I am going to get, a pain. Pain is going to happen. And the people that I work with, the teams that I've worked with, which is what I was alluding to earlier on, all over the world, who have got that local knowledge, who can bring it up to the surface and actually share it with you and make you understand and help you understand and support you. Because I have a tendency in my teams to I don't like to be hierarchical. I like to be supportive, especially because, a lot of the markets that I work in currently are emerging markets. So of course, those people haven't had the exposure that I've had. So I'm helping them come up into being more exposed, because they're generally quite shy. And I'm not, as you could probably have realized a long time ago. So I would say my first, 15 years of my career were really tough, because I felt like I had to prove myself. And now I feel that I'm a subject matter expert. And I'm not saying that in an arrogant way. I'm saying that today I want to give back what I've learned to whomever who wants to listen to me and follow me. But that's definitely something that I like to do now.
That's awesome. I think just recognizing that there is a path, recognizing that it's not always going to be easy. And it's a common theme, right, that I'm hearing. One of the women that we talked to said that you need to kind of go and earn your stripes, and you need to put in the time. So I think this is really, really insightful. And thank you, Ambreen, for being so candid and for sharing both the good and the bad, that things that have made you. And I really appreciate it.
No, it's been a pleasure, and thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you.
And good luck to all the women out there.
That time has come. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And it was a pleasure talking to Ambreen Khasru, an absolute leader. Please follow her. And join us on the next episode when we'll be talking to other women who've placed a trail as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.